Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the star line by an author, journalist, writer, and podcaster. His latest project is What's Your Problem?, where he examines the future that entrepreneurs and engineers are trying to get to, the problems they're trying to overcome. We welcome Jacob Goldstein.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Jacob, let's go beyond the mic. You've written a book about money, written for everyone from the New York Times to NPR, and worked at a startup. How is challenges faced by technology fuel What's Your Problem?
So, the big idea of the show is we're at this really interesting, exciting, in some ways scary moment of like incredible technological change. And what I'm doing on the show is talking to the people who are making that change, who are right out at the frontier, figuring out these new technologies, figuring out how to do things in the real world that nobody's ever done before.
You've examined the history of light and the cost of oil to light a room and how it's gotten cheaper through technology. But what technology scares you?
Wow, what technology scares me? I mean, I'm a little creeped out by how much we're tracked all the time, in just a low-key way, right? Like how much my phone knows about me. Like, to be clear, I have a phone and I'm on social media, so it doesn't scare me that much, right? It's not like I'm moving off the grid. But it is remarkable how much basically anybody who really wanted to know could know about me.
As you talk with engineers about their problems, what have you discovered about the future of the world for the better or for the worse?
I mean, I think there's going to be more change than I used to, right? Like maybe because I sort of grew up more focused on the past than the future. I studied history and literature and that kind of thing. I'm not an engineer by training. So I always sort of thought, well, we're kind of at the end. All these things already happened and that's sort of it. There are a lot of people who think about us as being at the beginning, right? They think about the world 50 years from now or 100 years from now. And they think not only, well, look how much the world has changed in the last 100 years. It's going to change even more in the next 20 than it's changed in the last 100, right? Which is a wild way of thinking about the world. And it really makes me want to understand it and make this show about it.
What amazes you about the challenges and solutions people want to find? It has to be very invigorating meeting with people who are almost there.
Yeah. What's cool is just how much people build stuff and make stuff and tinker until they get it right. Like this idea of like, well, let's just try it, right? It's not like we have to have the perfect theory or we have to figure everything out. So like I'm thinking, for example, I did a show about this drone delivery company, right? And they right now are making hundreds of flights a day in Rwanda and Ghana delivering medicine. And their problem is figuring out how to expand to the US. But these are just like a couple guys who, realized there was this problem of basically distributing medicine in the developing world. And like, they just went and did it, And so first they went and said, well, maybe we can just buy drones. And it turns out those were all military drones that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each and wouldn't do what they did. So they're like, okay, let's build it. And they built this crazy system where they're like these little, look like remote control planes and they get fired out of slingshots. And then instead of landing, they get caught on a wire. And like, they just did that. They just went out and solved one problem after another and made this thing that didn't exist in the world before.
Is there a challenge that you're searching for? An engineer is attempting the solution of something that you really want to have solved?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, there are a bunch of things that are interesting to me that I haven't figured out yet, not in a personal level, but like I've been trying to find somebody to talk, for example, about construction, right? Construction is this field. Obviously, it's a huge part of our economy, really important, building houses and buildings. And in a lot of ways has not changed that much, right? In a lot of ways looks similar to what it looked like a decade ago, a few decades ago. And so I'd love to learn more about people kind of at the technological cutting edge in construction, doing new, more efficient things. Like that's one that I'm curious about that I haven't figured out.
Jacob Goldstein from What's Your Problem joins us beyond the mic, and it's time for the Rocking 8. 8 random questions. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. There is no pressure.
There's some pressure.
Well, maybe a little. Favorite of all of the Federal Reserve banks?
New York.
Where do you get most of your writing and or thinking done?
I'm in my closet right now. It's where I make the podcast. So let's go with the closet.
How about that best place to take your kids to really make them happy?
The beach.
Do you have a favorite beer? And you can't use the unemployed reporter porter.
Brooklyn Pilsner.
How does your dog Mo give you unconditional love?
Well, as long as I give him unconditional treats, he gives me unconditional love.
What's the best thing about your wife?
Oh, she's so funny.
Have you ever used the nice guy point and the angry guy point in the same day?
Yes, I only worry that people can't tell the difference.
When will Skynet go live?
I hope not for a long time.
At one point in 2013, Bitcoin traded for $31. Now it trades for 1,000 times more, with countries backing farming. Every Tom, Dick, and Goldstein is launching a coin or a DAO now. Why?
They want to get rich quick.
Now, businesses have gone from offering tons of service to little service and basically, in some cases, just self-serve. At what point will service return?
Maybe never.
Is that a good thing?
I mean, if people really want it, it'll return, right? I mean, self-serve versus full serve seems like a problem that we can leave to the market. There are lots of problems we can't leave to the market. But if people really are willing to pay for more service, then businesses will offer it.
It's time for One Big Question with Jacob Goldstein from What's Your Problem? The podcast looking for solutions. Jacob, when it started, social media's goal was to bring people together, but now it's more a divisive place. Don't like what your friends are saying here? That's okay. We'll build a new platform or we'll go somewhere else. Has social media reached a point of inefficiency?
Boy, that's an interesting question. Inefficiency. I mean, I certainly waste a lot of time on Twitter.
Really?
Some of my time on Twitter is useful, and a lot of my time on Twitter is not. That's my main social media place. In fact, I even pay for an app that lets me lock myself out of Twitter for, hours at a time. So that certainly seems inefficient at some level. Yeah.
And how much does an app like that cost? Because I know people who really need
it's a subscription and it's like tens of dollars a year. I don't remember what it is, but it's not $100 a year. I find it super worthwhile. So it's weird and I'm kind of ashamed of it, but I use it.
What future topics are you covering on the next couple editions of What's Your Problem?
Some upcoming episodes. There's, the guy who started Moderna, the vaccine company. He's really interesting, has big ideas about starting companies in general. On a kind of other end of the spectrum, there's a guy who runs an instant delivery company, GoPuff, one of these companies where you can get groceries delivered in 20 minutes or half hour. During that interview, I actually placed an order and it came while I was on the phone with him. So that was a fun one. I've got a brother and sister who are weed farmers in Washington. That's kind of a change of pace. That's also going to be a fun one. A lot of good stuff coming.
Jacob Goldstein's dog Mo loves him only when he gives him treats. He loves visiting the beach with the kids, and his favorite beer is a Brooklyn Pilsner. Check out What's Your Problem wherever you find podcasts. Jacob, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
That was great. That's the best lightning round ever.
And that, my friends, is a Beyond the Mic shortcut.